Hello and welcome. Thank you for taking steps to a healthier, happier life. Strong relationships are foundational to physical and mental well-being and are absolutely worth putting effort into. Here's how this works. I will go through the slides and the two of you will follow along with the video, pausing whenever you need. There will be several opportunities for reflection along the way, so I invite you to pause the recording and take some time for this. If you need to take a longer break, just pause the video and pick up again where you left off. You will need a notebook or journal and something to write with. The primary focus of this workshop is on action and practice. However, there are a few foundational ideas about partnerships and marriage that are helpful to understand. Here, we will spend some time discussing the role of attachment in your relationship, the typical cycle of long-term relationships, and then go over the 7 principles for making marriage work according to John Gottman. Here, I would like to acknowledge that if your relationship is in conflict, it may simply be because you have not learned the skills for maintaining a healthy relationship. Take a look at these different attachment patterns. Can you identify yourself in any of these attachment styles? If you think of how you were raised and the relationships that were modeled for you, does this make any sense? If this is the case, ask yourselves and each other, how has this affected your relationship? We won't dive into each of these in this workshop, but there are plenty of resources available on the internet for those with attachment injuries and those who identify with a certain attachment style. This diagram, author unknown, is one representation of the typical cycle of long-term relationships. Late-stage love, or the part on the left that looks like an 8, represents how late-stage healthy love ebbs and flows. Couples experience phases of being in love, but also experience lows that feel like boredom, familiarity, distancing, even hate or contempt. To remain in your relationship and benefit from the security it offers, you must be able to tolerate periods of dissatisfaction. Remember that feelings are not facts and are not permanent. It is essential to embrace the highs and lows over the years and understand the cyclical nature of love. It is vital to savor good times with your long-term love and to sit tight through bad times without bouncing out of this circle altogether or ending the relationship. It is also essential to avoid threatening to end the relationship due to a lull. Instead, talk about how you can reset. Threats kill safety, and safety is the basis for deep intimacy. Now, observing this diagram, take a moment to reflect with your partner. Can you identify any of these periods in your own relationship? And in this late stage love, what stressors or events have contributed to the down cycles? Now, we will take a look at the 7 principles for making marriage work as outlined by John Gottman, who is one of the country's foremost marriage researchers. Principle 1. Enhance your love maps. What is a love map? Essentially, the space in your brain that you make for your partner's life, their likes and dislikes, dreams and goals. Take a minute to ask yourselves, in this moment, how well do you really know each other? Principle 2. Nurture your fondness and admiration. Sounds simple, right? After all, of course we like each other. We've been together for all these years. But if we think about it, as we grow more comfortable with our spouse or partner, our fondness and admiration often go in the other direction. We've all heard the saying, familiarity breeds contempt. How fond are you of your partner? Take a moment to reflect. Principle 3. Turn toward instead of away. Part of the Gottman's research was to study couples as newlyweds and then again several years later. They would study newly married couples in their love lab, which was an apartment where the couple was free to do as they wished in a 24-hour period. After following up with couples 6 years later, they studied the difference in interactions between those who stayed together and those who divorced. One important difference that they found was that happily married couples turned toward each other's bids an average of 86% of the time, compared with 33% of the time for those destined to divorce. And I'll repeat that. Happily married couples turned toward each other's bids for connection an average of 86% of the time, compared with only 33% of the time for those couples that would then divorce. What does this mean exactly? To turn toward each other, or to have this bid for connection. Here is an example. You and your spouse are each doing your own thing in the living room. Your spouse looks out the window and says, "Oh, what a pretty bird. I've never seen one like that around here." How do you respond to this small bid for connection? Turning toward this interaction might look like you responding with, "Oh, I saw that here yesterday too. I wonder what it is." Turning away would simply be ignoring the comment. Turning against your spouse might be responding with, "Can you please stop talking? I'm trying to get some work done." The research shows that it's important to turn toward each other on a daily basis as well as in times of stress. This is where active listening comes in as well. In the next section, we will dive deeper into listening skills. So ask each other and yourselves, how often do you respond to your partner's bids for connection? Principle 4, let your partner influence you. Basically, this shows that you value your partner's perspective and opinion. Are you being asked to submit yourselves to your spouse? No, but perhaps considering their perspective shows them how much you value their contribution. After all, you are building your lives together, not separately. Take a moment to consider this. Principle 5, solve your solvable problems. The Gottmans outline two types of problems: solvable problems and perpetual problems. Here are a few basic principles to solving your solvable problems, and I do recommend writing these down. Soften your startup. How are you coming into this argument? Are you hot and ready to light into your partner? Or can you take a few deep breaths, remember that your partner is human, and just check your sarcasm at the door? Learn to make and receive repair attempts. Although your ideal outcome might be to win this argument, making attempts at repair, such as apologizing, acknowledging wrongdoing, and asking how you can improve, will likely be better for your relationship in the long run. Soothe yourself and each other. This one is easier said than done. But a couple who regulates together stays together, or something. Take a break, take some deep breaths, do what you need to do to stay regulated. The fourth principle, compromise. You know this one. Next, be tolerant of each other's faults. Remember, you are both human. And lastly, ask for what you need. Is it possible that your partner doesn't know what you need? Are you sure you've made it clear? Oftentimes, simple miscommunication is at the root of the conflict. The sixth principle is to overcome gridlock. The bad news is 69% of problems in marriages are unsolvable, according to the Gottmans research. The good news is you can still have a happy marriage despite this. Identify what these issues are for you and ask each other, what's your dream about this? And what's your nightmare about this? By digging deeper into these issues, you may find that your viewpoints on life aren't so different after all. Principle 7, create shared meaning. Happy marriages include a life lived together, not separately. How can you include your partner in the things that are meaningful to you? Now, part 2, time to practice. When conflicts come up in our relationship or outside of our relationship, it can be difficult to talk them through in a constructive manner. Relationship experts Harville Hendricks and Helen LaKelly Hunt created what is called imago dialogue, which is a structured way to dialogue conflicts or stresses in an empathetic manner between partners. Now, this dialogue includes 4 specific parts. It also includes each partner taking the role of either speaker or listener, or also referred to as sender and receiver in imago dialogue. This sort of dialogue, especially when introducing a conflict in the relationship, should first start with asking permission to bring it up, so your partner is not blindsided by this confrontation. So first, ask permission. Is now a good time to talk? The next 4 parts are outlined for the receiver to listen to the sender or speaker. Here is a brief description of each of these 4 parts. Part 1, mirror what the speaker said. For example, it sounds like you are really upset about this thing that happened yesterday. Part 2, summarize if the speaker has said multiple things at once, so you show that you really understood what they said. For example, you really felt unappreciated when I did all of these things. Am I getting all that? Also important here is the question, is there more? And did I get all of that? The third part, once you did get all of that and the speaker is done sharing, is to validate. Show your partner that what they're saying makes sense. For example, it makes sense that you feel this way because of this and this and this. Part 4. This part can be difficult, but is very important. Empathize with your partner. A statement of empathy can be as simple as, "That sounds difficult. I imagine you feel hurt right now," or something similar. That is a very brief explanation of imago dialogue. If this is still confusing to you, or if you have questions about how it works, or want to see an example, I invite you to pause the video, do a quick search of imago dialogue on YouTube or wherever you watch videos or listen to something, and there are plenty of real-time examples of what imago dialogue actually looks like. However, I do want us to try this out. As we mentioned in solving solvable problems, it is important to be regulated so that our emotions don't hijack our nervous systems when we are trying to talk something out with our partner. Co-regulating is a big word for what can be as simple as taking deep breaths or taking a short break. We could do this together or separately, just making sure that we are not starting out this dialogue in a heightened state. Now, I want you each to choose something that has been on your mind lately that you would like to practice talking about. I actually recommend starting with something that is not related to your relationship. Let's do an outside stressor like work or a situation with another family member, or just something small that's been stressing us out lately. Pause this video and spend a few minutes each being the speaker and listener, following the imago dialogue structure. After both going through this exercise, reflect. How does it feel to be really listened to? Was it hard to listen without chiming in? This level of validation and empathy provides a sense of safety and allows us to share our feelings, knowing that we will be supported and validated. Welcome to Part 3. After going through Part 1 and Part 2, we will take some time now to reflect on what your relationship needs. Is it weekly connection, more fun and play, more listening, a weekend away from daily stresses? Or do you just need to be more clear about what you need from your spouse? We will now spend some time mapping out how we can improve things. If you haven't already, this is the time to pull out a journal or notebook and something to write with. First, let's start with the miracle question to get ideas flowing. If tomorrow you woke up and your relationship was perfect, what exactly would that look like? How would things be different than they are now? Take some time to journal on this. Next, what are things that you can change? What are some things that you would like to work on together? What are things you need from your partner? Be clear and specific. For example, instead of saying, "You need to do more around the house," you could say, "Can you please help with the dishes after dinner every night?" Let's also think about how and when you can set time aside every week to focus on each other. Brainstorm first. What is it you want to do? I will share ideas on the next slide. Then, when can you fit it into your schedules? Will you need to line up a babysitter or rearrange your schedule at all? It may not be easy at first. We're all busy, right? But remember that your relationship is worth the effort. Here are some ideas while you work on setting some goals together. Feel free to pause this video and rewind at any point. Congratulations! You have reached the end of this workshop. I hope you have gained some insight on how to improve your relationship. Feel free to replay any part of this and keep it for your personal use. If, after reflecting with your partner, you feel that you need more personalized and in-depth help, reach out to work with a Mindful Mates clinician at the phone number or web address on this slide. Thank you so much for your work here, and I encourage you to thank your partner as well for doing this important work.